everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker Training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTraining.tv, where every day is an awesome day of learning about the FileMaker platform. It's a great platform for customers and businesses and organizations. Customers, I'm an outside developer, but you might be an in-house developer, in which case your customer is your own organization. But it's a great tool for high improvements in business efficiency, high improvements on return on investment for your IT dollar to make your processes smoother, faster, better. It's not perfect, but like anything else in the world, if it's successful, there must be something there to it, why we use it, why we continue to use it. For me, after 33 years, keeps getting better and better. So, some upfront notes action going on. We are broadcasting in high definition on Twitch, YouTube, and Discord. So last week was the launch of the FileMaker 23 release, which has gone mostly well, I think. And as a side note, there is an ongoing conversation. Claris is already working on a patch or bug release fix for 23. There's always whatever the current release is in market, there's always the next one they're working on, right? So they already found some bugs and things with it. We're trying to get the send email issue added to the bug list because I thought Jacob Taylor just sucked as a human, or he had a stroke or something. It turns out that last week we didn't demo the send email command because we can't get it to work, but I thought Jacob just sucked. Turns out other people are having the same problem. I feel much better that Jacob is not somehow impaired or he's been drinking on the job. So Claris has a documentation / bug issue / whatever issue. And so they're like, it doesn't work. I'm like, yeah. So they've got a bunch of reports on it, I guess. Hopefully they will figure that out. So let's talk about the upcoming broadcast schedule. So yesterday we did the installation. Jacob did the installation. FileMaker Server on Amazon AWS, where you kind of rent your own server on essentially a month-to-month basis or year-to-year basis. You rent or lease a server. Lease is probably a better word for it. And then, so yesterday was Windows. So the Windows operating system, which had to be, Jacob, what versions were supported? Windows Server?
2019, 2022. We did 2022 yesterday.
Yeah, 2019, 2022 on an EC2 server of some type. And so today we're going to continue along the same lines with the conversation. We're going to be doing a server install on Linux. So it'll be on Amazon, on Linux. Are you doing the ARM one or not doing the ARM one?
Not doing the ARM one.
Or not doing ARM. So for those of you who missed the memo last week on stuff, Claris, out of one side of their mouth, they say, hey, we're going to get rid of all the versions of server. And out of the other side of the mouth, they offer more versions of server. So it's kind of like this eclectic, spastic kind of going in different directions simultaneously thing. So at least for the current release of the FileMaker platform, there are like 5 versions of it, right? They're supposed to like get rid of everything and just be down to Linux, but we still have Mac's release server support, Windows release server support, and at least 2 or 3 different versions of Linux supported. So the new one that's added is ARM support. So for those of you, it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna skip all the technical stuff, but ARM processor, you have like Intel processors, and back in the day we had PowerPC processors. Then you had, then you have AMD, which is a copy of the Intel processor, blah blah blah. Well, there's these ARM processors, which was a lot of the investment technology that Apple was part of this at one point, other people invested in, so it's a competing architecture. Well, ARM processors are performance-wise, I'm going to loosely say this in terms of our speed testing, about the same as Intel on Windows or Intel on Unix. So if you have Linux on ARM and Linux on Intel, the performance is about the same. The difference is the price. The price is down by like 40% or some crazy thing like that or something. And so you can get a lease server, get rid of Windows, that saves a bunch of money, then get rid of the Intel processor, which makes it a whole lot cheaper because apparently Amazon bought in with ARM or did something with ARM. So they have these Graviton processors. Does that sound right, Jacob? If I said that right?
Yeah, they make their own. Graviton processors are Amazon, like they make their own. It's a variant. It's a little complex to to run it all the way out. But the short version is ARM is like a way to make processors, and then there are different companies that make ARM processors, like the real thing that you might put in a computer. So ARM, like the company, makes designs for processors. They don't make chips. And so if you have an Apple one, that's a heavily modified one, M1 or iPhone, you know, something like that. If you have a Qualcomm one, you've heard that company. If you have an Android phone, same thing, heavily modified ARM design. And there's many others like that out there, but they're all ARM chips.
So Amazon is this big company, which I really like. They say whatever operating system you want's fine, whatever this you want's fine. If they have to pay Microsoft, they're going to pass that cost through to you. If they have to pay Intel for a processor, they're going to pass that cost to you. However, if they cook up their own processor and they keep all the money, they offer it much cheaper. Probably they make more margin on it internally. And so from our perspective, we can get a FileMaker server cheaper on a per month basis back down to the $50-$60 level, which is pretty great. So anyway, so that's kind of, we're not going to do the ARM demo today, although I don't know that it would be that different. I suspect it would be nearly identical because you're still using Ubuntu on ARM, right? On a Graviton.
It would look almost precisely the same. Yeah.
The difference would be when we turned on the when we spec out the EC2 instance on Amazon. So before you do the install, you have to get the instance running. You have to kind of either rent it or commit to it or pay for it or do something to get it going, and then you could do the install on that. So that's kind of what we're doing today. Tomorrow's going to be Mac. Oh shoot, I've got to get that going for you. I have a Mac server somewhere. I'm going to have to probably get in the car and go drive and find it. I'm trying to remember where it's at the moment. Then Thursday, Leland Long back. So we're back to this weekly routine that we're going to be heading for next week, where we're going to be doing 3 days of building and remanufacturing a solution with Nick Hunter, and then there'll be a day a week of JavaScript with Leland Long, whatever that topic looks like, one day, and then you'll have 1 day of Christian Schmidt or whoever else is kind of filling in that last day. So that's kind of this upcoming schedule that we have coming up. It's pretty exciting. And so Christian Schmidt is running around today. Welcome, Christian Schmidt. I am off actually coding a FileMaker app, so when you don't see me here, so I can eat my own dog food. We eat our own dog food. If the CEO of the small company can actually program the solution, then that's awesome. So I'm going to go off and work on that because I don't want to do Linux installs. I find them interesting, but that's why you have super duper awesome people like Jacob here to walk us through that. So, all right, so we ready to go? I'm going to transfer command of the bridge to Mr. Taylor. Right. Mr. Taylor, you have the con. Ooh, this is cool. The EC2 interface. I like it. So.
Yep. All right, let me do. And the other thing we're going to be playing around in is the command line over here. But
oh, by the way, last thing, there's not a hard stop on this, so we will cut this video up and it will be recorded, but it'll be whatever length it takes to get to the end, right, Jacob?
Yeah, it'll be shorter than the one yesterday. I covered a bunch of other stuff, and also had to freestyle it a bit to get our cloud thing working. Margaret saw that, and the people that were here yesterday, I see a couple of you in Discord also saw that. We will not have to repeat that today. So,
well, yeah, but if you run into a problem that other people run into, feel free to call it out and make a note about that. Right?
Yeah, that's what I did. I fixed it and then explained what I did. Basically, our virtual private cloud, our little bubble that we have, was incorrectly set up, which actually is probably something I messed up like years ago now. And now I know how to fix problems like that. So it actually was pretty easy to fix, but it was also one of those, oh, great, like perfect live demo. We're going to go on air. I'm going to try and launch this machine. And hey, I can't even connect to it. Congratulations. So
cool.
That's how that goes. Topic at hand here. Let me make my headset better.
David Angel already asked the question, so I'll let you and Margaret handle this. Yes.
The IU upgrade with FMS 23 will not install Claris certificate. How to install Claris certificate via the admin console. Alex asks, has the ARM version been released yet? I think the answer is yes. I'm checking ours directly to see if the link is posted. Let me see. Yes, the Ubuntu 22 ARM builds of Claris FileMaker Server 2023 are live. You can fetch those from your license information page. I forget what Claris calls that. Software downloads ESD, something that's had some names over the years. So yeah, that is presently available to you. So let's kick this off. You can see the server from yesterday. Actually, we're going to add one to this list here, and there's only a couple things that you really need. So our account's very old. I'm going to say that in advance. If you're doing this in a fresh Amazon account, you're going to use basically defaults for most of this. I'm going to call out a couple things that you might want to change, but generally speaking, we also will not have a repeat of yesterday because it's a problem that doesn't exist if you have like a fresh account or haven't messed with or blown up anything in your account. And I did that previously here because we're using ours. This is in the Oregon region, which RCC does not really, as you can tell, we don't really host in. If I were showing you the US West region, which is Northern California, where like a lot of the company is, we have like 11 servers. So just putting that out there. So we want to pick an instance size, and we didn't really go over it yesterday, but like how user sizing and stuff like that works, because you can save so much more money on Linux, I want to kind of sit on that thought for a moment. So I mentioned yesterday, and I'll mention it again, the minimum spec is at least a T3 large. You may be able to get away with a medium. At this point, though, with the product, I wouldn't recommend it. You can do it as like I'm a little test user or something like that, you know, a developer machine or something similar, fine. But I really would recommend a large or more horsepower, generally speaking. There's a lot of server-side caching and stuff like that if you're not, a tiny little developer machine just doing a little testing, it's greatly beneficial to you and you should embrace it. Basically, apologies, it's a little more money, but we still do recommend it. The second note is we're going to use the T series of instances again today. We're going to do a T3 large as the demo because it's easy and I can pick it. However, and the reason I don't cover this with Windows is because it's so much more money. If you want more horsepower, or if you have enough users that you need more horsepower, for example, you're in the 70 plus user range or something like that, you'll want to look at the M series of processors. They're the older ones. The ancient ones when I was like first hired was like M4 or something like that. There was an M5 at some point. Those are still good, actually. They're not current, but the hardware is still pretty decent. M6 is current, like the current generation. They're, I think, memory optimized generic instances or something like that. The one I have dreamed of putting RCC on is an M6i. You can go look up what those instances are. Kind of the numbers follow the same thing. So if you get like an M6i large, it's going to have like 8 gigs of RAM and either a dual core, quad core, something like that. So the numbers and stuff like this are fairly comparable, between the T's and the M's. But the M class goes up way higher. So you can get machines that have like 192 gigs of RAM and stuff like that. Probably not necessary for most of my clients, but it's available to you. Those machines, specifically the M6 and especially the M6Is, those are brand new Intel server Xeon processors, top shelf, like gold or platinum tier from like last year. And they are disgustingly fast. I don't have a nice way to put that. I got to set one up for a client on an Ubuntu thing. They were actually doing some machine learning stuff, and the server was gross. It was I've never seen a machine that fast. It blew everything else I've ever touched out of the water as far as a FileMaker server went. So they're great, but again, the entire point and the reason we didn't have that conversation yesterday is because if you were running a Windows server on that, which you can do, you're going to pay a lot of money in basically what amounts to Windows Server licensing. Amazon builds that into the hourly price. And so like you just pay it. And one way you can basically compare the price is to do a side-by-side comparison of like ballpark of a monthly cost on a Windows versus a Linux version of the same server. And as you go up in something like an M class, you're paying per CPU core licensing for Windows, basically like the full freight, full cost, and it's expensive. I don't even want to quote prices because the one I tried to throw a client on one yesterday. They were having a little emergency, and I believe the monthly price, and this again, this is not disks, bandwidth, literally no backups, like nothing, just the head of the server, the CPU and RAM was $1,000 a month. So I very seriously mean expensive. Very fast, but expensive. So at some point, numbers like that don't scare anybody because your business is large enough. But a lot of our customers are pretty small, and so even 90 or $100 a month or something like that for servers, it's a bit. So let's kick off the install. Again, the main thing we're going to do here is we're going to launch a T3 large. I'm going to pick, so we're going to do launch instances. I don't need to do anything super fancy here. I'm going to say Ubuntu 2204, Linux FMS 2023. That's a nice name. I like that. Super descriptive. We're going to come in here. We do not want Amazon Linux, actually. We want Ubuntu. And so this one's important. So you have the pick. It's going to default you to 2204. Again, if you want to do an ARM one, you can. Make sure you have a matching instance type. In this case, that would be a T4G, I believe. That's, let me check. So if I switch to ARM, and does it? Yeah, it even changes me to a T4G. Awesome. Cool. So we're not going to do that today because we're going to stick with the Intel one. But yeah, so that just, but if you were doing it that way, that's what you do. The difference is we're going to, so the way that Claris has packaged this, there are FileMaker Server installers for Linux that are specific to both the version of Ubuntu that you're using and the processor type. So, and we're going to do Ubuntu 2204, but there's another version that's not ARM. It's Intel also that does Ubuntu 2004, which is from 2020. 2204 is from 2022. The 04 is April because that's how Ubuntu does their release numbering. And then the particular of the 2020 versus 2022 is those are both long-term support releases. And in general, I think that means they have 5 or 7 years of maybe 5 years of regular support and like 2 more years of security only, or something like that. Somebody can correct me, I'm sure, but it's you have time. Like you can set the server up and like sit on it for a while as long as you apply your updates. So we're gonna go with that one. We're gonna stick with that. Like I mentioned, we're gonna do a T3. I can search dot. Can I do large? Yeah. Nice. Oh, and they show all the different pricing here. Very cool. Oh, that's fantastic, actually. Oh, and then on demand in cool. All right. And you can see like we're not using Red Hat or SUSE. Those are other types of Linux, but they are other types of Linux that have inbuilt licensing costs because you're paying a fee for those companies to basically produce that Linux software, and Red Hat in particular like audits every line of code and stuff like that. So it's good, but not free. So we're going to make a new one. We're going to create a key pair. This one's going to be Ubuntu 2204, FMS 2023, something like that. That sounds great. So we're going to do create key pair. That shoved it into my downloads, which is perfect. We're going to come back to that in a minute. We need to do the network settings. I'd only have to do this once today. Perfect. Whoops. Got that. I'm going to assign a public IP. Don't need the IPv6 yet. We're going to create a security group. Ubuntu 2204. A security group in Amazon is basically the firewall settings, but it's the firewall in Amazon. It is not the firewall like in the server. So, for example, if you're having some connectivity issues, what I will tell you in advance is make sure you have opened both firewalls, and then if you have like a corporate network or something like that at your office or place of business, whatever, do also be sure that you're not like blocking yourself on accident or something, because you can have your own like local network sort of firewalls that interfere with things as well. So, all right, so that's fine. We're going to have SSH. Sure, we can open it to the world. That's probably not It's not super secure, but it'll be fine for this. We're going to add a security group rule, and just like we did yesterday, we're going to put there's 3 that we have to add. So 3 like key core ports for FileMaker remote connectivity. One is HTTP, the second one is HTTPS, if I can find it in the list. There it is. And then the third is FileMaker. And give me 2 seconds and I'll explain the CIDR thing, because there you go. All right. FileMaker? Yeah, port 5003. All right, cool. So we have SSH, which is the command line access to the server. That's how we're going to set up and do the install itself. Second one, we have our 2 web ports, basically. This 000/0 is everything. In other words, everybody with an IPv4 address on the whole internet can talk to the server. As I mentioned, maybe don't do that if it's like this, SSH access, for the same reason that you might limit the remote desktop access to, say, your office that your IT guy is going to log in from or something like that. You want to keep those things locked down, not even in the sense of like having an amazing password, although of course you should do things like that as well, but kind of specifically because you want to make sure that just at the start, only the people that need to access something can. In general, we set the FileMaker servers up so that they have global access. Frankly, honestly, because I don't want to deal with clients like emailing me and asking, "Oh, add this IP. I'm at a hotel. I'm in Texas at a conference. Like whatever." That's all great, but it's not a huge risk factor for the server. But if you have something like a privileged access port like SSH, like remote desktop, stuff like that, while it's not a huge risk, it's still a great idea to lock stuff like that down and just simply only make it accessible to the people who need to. So we have that, and then the final one, this is the FileMaker Server data port, which is port 5003. As of server 19.4, I think, and later, we used to also put add in port 16,000 if you want to have like off machine, off internet, off LAN, outside of the network, basically public access to the admin console. We don't have to do that anymore because the admin console is on port 443 now, so we don't have to do it. So we have that. That's our firewall. I'm going to boost this. That's kind of large, honestly, but it'll be good for a demo here. And then I'm changing from GP2 to GP3. GP2 is the legacy, but both are general purpose SSD. It's like legacy edition and kind of current. I don't know, maybe we'll get a GP4 here soon, which would be cool actually. But at that point, we'll probably be going to something like an NVMe drive, because the GP3s aren't quite that fast. They're closer to the last version of the old SATA SSDs. For those of you who know stuff about computer hardware, they aren't really like NVMe scale, gigabytes per second and stuff like that. So, but they're good. So we have that. So we have our operating system. We have our large. We have our new security group. We have a tiny free tier. It doesn't matter. Cool. We'll look at the advanced details. Usually you don't have to set anything in here though. Okay, cool. You can do resource-based DNS things. Yeah, none of this matters. There's just some extra settings and stuff that you can configure. There's a couple things in here that might be interesting to a couple of clients, but for the most part, most people aren't going to use this stuff. So, all right, cool. So we're going to launch. I don't have to do anything here. That's just going to boot up. So we'll click this, and while it's booting, because it's not booted yet, you see status check initializing here. So we're staring at this list here. I'm going to grab one thing on my end, because about the first thing we're going to do is jump onto the command line. Move the key that it gave me from my downloads folder to my user folder. Done. And then that's the other one. All right, cool. So do we have questions yet? Commentary I should address?
Yes. We'll do this one because it's going to come up again.
Mhm.
How's the new server? Any glaring issues so far? Is it stable?
I actually basically don't have an answer yet currently. As the unnecessarily honest answer, these live stream installs are the first ones we've ever done. A bunch of people are very excited about 2023. I have seen nothing to indicate there are screaming issues. But as ever, our recommendation is basically always the same. Two things: don't be the first one to jump. Um, let everyone else do it. And so the way that that works out in practice is, there was a version that was cut on release day, or whatever, a week in, however software production works, right? It's probably actually compiled at least a week or two in advance. But those things aside, there was a version that was made available on release day. There, as Richard mentioned, is a forthcoming patch. At the point that patch is out, that's the point at which we're going to tell everybody, yeah, it's probably good to upgrade. Not because I have any more or less knowledge, than anybody else about that, but just practically and realistically, everyone will the people that we're going to jumped immediately as soon as 2023 was out, and so we're going to let them test it. They're going to find a couple of bugs. There's going to be a couple, that maybe slid in from late in the 19 release cycle that'll come in that second patch, and at that point, at least the first cut of bugs is removed, of missed features, or hey, we didn't quite do that right, or just little stuff like that. And that is the one at which that's the patch, which again is not the release version, but the one after that, where I would tell you, I mean, I don't know, but probably you're probably safe to upgrade. If you want to do it now, honestly, go for it. But just maybe don't do it on the production server. But that said, also, I am likely to jack RCC up to 20, basically about as soon as that second patch comes out, because it looks good. There's the OAuth email and whatever, like I can wait on that being fixed. We're not using it yet, so it's fine. But ideally that gets resolved as well. However, there's a patch. One of the things that's addressed in the patch forthcoming is actually like the part of the RAM clearing stuff that is new for WebDirect and Web Presentation Engine in FileMaker Server 20 or FMS 2023. And so, yeah, that will. I want the bug fixed. Like it's like an oversight on Claris's part, basically. And so this minor revision to it is like perfect. That's what we want. We have a client. I actually told them to wait because essentially, whenever this patch comes, they cut the release last week. Whenever this patch comes out, I'm immediately going to have to tell them to upgrade again, because they are someone that is directly affected by the continuous RAM increase that some clients have experienced on, for example, 19.6 with WebDirect and Web Presentation Engine especially. So once the cut version of that feature's out, happy to tell people to bump it up. So
another quick question: is FMS Linux version in parity with the Windows version?
it's a really good question. I think generally speaking, the answer to that question is yes at this point. I'd have to do a deep dive on what's not supported on one side or the other. But what I will say, it doesn't quite address the question, sorry, but a big part of the work that went into FileMaker Server 2023 was basically fixing that problem, which is, there was a bunch of stuff that was Mac only, or like only worked properly on like Windows and Mac and not Linux, or only worked properly on Mac and not so much on Windows, and definitely not, like stuff like that. So I don't know if the answer is like yes without qualification. But again, a huge portion of like the new features that are not really new features, it's like web viewers and stuff work server side on Linux. The data API on all platforms can shoot PDFs out via Save Records as PDF and stuff like that. And so like it's never worked across platforms previously, like not really properly since we've been on Linux. And so it's a lot of stuff like that. fixing the cross-platform stuff. So, all right, we have a Linux. I'm going to refresh this, and it's probably going to tell me our machine is good to go. Yep, running, and 2 checks passed. Wonderful. All right, so I'm going to do 2 things. One is I'm going to this is a silly. Actually, let me do it wrong on purpose so I can demonstrate why I'm doing the other thing. Hold on, that's a better idea. Oops. Can I copy this? There we go. Thank you. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to do this wrong on purpose just so you guys see. So the normal way you'd log into a server. So we're going to do SSH. We want to specify the this I means identity. And so we don't use usernames and or we do use usernames. We don't use passwords to get into Linux servers. You can. It is not recommended is the short version. It's much more secure. You can use a key file. And so the key file can basically, the server knows which key files are okay for it or whatever. And so I'm going to, let's see, we're going to do this wrong. So I'm going to go, that's my home folder. I'm going to do Ubuntu. Nope. Oops. Ubuntu. Why is it not? Oh, I bet it's actually even rejecting me because it's not. All right, let me manually type this then. 2204 FMS 2023.pem. It's actually going to fight, or it's actually going to fight me for it. So let me go Ubuntu and I'm pasting this IP. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say, yes, that sounds great. And it's going to scream at me. And so you guys can see that on air. I'm intentionally doing that wrong on purpose, so you know why. So one of the things is we're using a key file. That's incredibly sensitive. And so what it is telling me is my SSH program, the command line app that I'm trying to use to connect to the server, is telling me to jump in a lake because I have insufficiently locked down permissions on my key file. People other than me on my computer, which there's no one else, but people other than me on my computer could read that file. And so we're going to change that. So we're going to change the mode to 400, which means I can read it, and 00, nobody else can do anything. 22, that'll get it done. All right, and then I'm gonna hit up arrow twice, and that'll bring my command back up just like it was. I'm gonna log in, and boom, here's our server. Nice. Do we have any pending updates? All right, so we're gonna do one basic, just, you should do it whenever you log into a computer the first time, which is I'm gonna apply updates. So we're gonna do sudo apt update. Whoops, apt, I have to spell it correctly. That's gonna pull all the software sources that are available to the server, and that's probably going to tell me maybe there's a couple patches available or something like that. Yep, 40 packages, nice. So and then we're going to do upgrade, and you could list out the packages like it gives you the command there. I don't really care. I'm just going to say yes. It's going to spew a lot, downloads all the files, it's going to install them all. We'll reboot really fast. We're gonna do one thing before I reboot. And the one thing we're going to do before we reboot, and this will make sense in about 3 minutes, is I'm going to install the unzip command line utility, which is the opposite of zip. What that will let me do is the FileMaker Server installers from Claris, and indeed as we're going to download RCC's hosted copy, but I just copied the files over basically. And so they ship the Linux installers in a zip, and rather than remembering the command line for unzipping things, I'm just going to install the unzip utility, which solves that problem really easily. So do we have questions?
Yeah, so can you make a new kernel on AWS?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't, but you can, yeah. The reason I wouldn't is because Amazon ships their own kernels to Linux. Probably not all of them or every type of Linux ever, but at least the ones that we're covering and the ones relevant to people in the audience. Amazon ships their own versions of the Linux kernel. I don't know what the modifications are, but if I had to make a random stab in the dark, I would I would guess that they have patches or improvements that help Linux work better with the actual hardware that Amazon has. Like whatever's running. I mean, we're supposed to pretend that like the cloud is this infinite thing. We don't have to care about the hardware. But like practically that's not true. So never had the pink screen. Oh yeah, correct. Yeah, I just hit enter and I don't do anything. I'm like old school Linux. I ignore all the new cool stuff that they give me. So I'm going to install the unzip utility, which I mentioned. And that'll take half a second. And yep, that's right. Oh, and it's yelling at me again. Cool. The point of that pink screen, I'm not going to show it because the contents of it don't really matter. But essentially what it's doing is certain pieces of software on the server were just like an update was downloaded and installed, but the version of the software that's running on the server is not updated. So you'd have to restart those programs at least. And on Linux, for the most part, you can restart things while the whole server's running, even if it's like for the most part, even if it's a core system service. And so if you don't want to take the system down, you are provided the opportunity to restart the programs that like you just updated and stuff. And so it lets you, if you're not going to do the kernel part, it lets you kind of do an in-place upgrade by just restarting all the relevant apps. So hold on. Reboot. So that's going to reboot, and that will take seconds actually. Yeah, nice. Okay, cool. So this will take just a couple seconds, and then we'll be back up, and we're going to grab the installer and go for it. Let's see. Yep. Nice. Wow. Fast reboot. Fantastic. All right. So fresh kernel, fresh whatever, fresh everything. We love it. I'm going to grab basically our link. But if you are looking at your license information page that I mentioned before, this is the link that you get either from us or from Claris, whoever you bought from. It has your pro downloads, your license certificate, this kind of stuff. For the Linux installers, you can right-click on the link on the page for the relevant Ubuntu FileMaker Server installer, copy the link. And then I'll basically show you where we're going to paste that once we get there. 2 seconds. I'm going to do FMS. We are doing Ubuntu 22, and we are doing AMD 64, which means Intel or AMD. And so I'm just going to wget, which is the generic probably most generic command line utility for downloading things on Linux. Second only to curl. Oh, that's nice. It copied it from Slack, and so we have fun accoutrements, control characters. All right, perfect. Done. All right, so we have an FMS 20.1.1. Build 38, Ubuntu 22, AMD 64. We've confirmed all our details. Great. So I'm going to unzip that. And I'm using the tab key there. So you see how I typed FMS and then just hit tab. I probably can't demonstrate it here, but you can do that with lots of things. If there's only one match, then it just fills it all out for you. But if there's multiple, you can double tap the tab key and it will list all the different files. Most command lines will do this. It'll list all your options. And so you can like, I need FMS 20, and I have a 21 dot something or whatever, right? And so it'll show both of them. And so you can pick one essentially. I'm going to do that. It's going to pop the deb out, which is the thing that we actually need here. I'm going to I've created a new tab in my command line thing, which is Command T. And I'm going to look up the file name here. Actually, there it is. And I'm going to do one thing, which is so we have an asterisk SSL. This is going to solve two problems. One is when you deploy FileMaker Server the first time, like the first thing it asks you on the admin console is like, hey, do you want to put an SSL in or not? Or do you want to use the one that Claris ships? So we have no desktop environment, and so I can't do the localhost thing where you're like browsing on the admin console locally or something like that to install this, put the SSL in, put the license certificate. So I have to do all that remotely, at least for this demo. And it'll probably be true for most of you if you're doing something like this in AWS. And so I'm going to upload the SSL at the start, and then I'll show you how to install it manually, if you will. So We're going to use SCP, which is secure copy. I'm going to, same thing. This argument will look very similar to the one we used before, which is that I, who am I? It's the identity. And then SCP is from, and so we're going to go from asterisk, and this is the zip file. You can see that. And then to, and so we're going to do Ubuntu. And then I've already lost the IP address over here. So let's bring that back. Dun, 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 dun. Oops, Ubuntu at, sorry. And then the next thing is actually a colon. So you do this and then the path. And so it's like where, so you're doing from on my computer, this zip file, and then to where. So I have a username, I have the IP address of the remote system, and then the next thing I'm going to do is like where on the remote system are we locating the file? I'm logged in as the Ubuntu user, so I'm just going to shove it in the home directory. Yeah. Done. So that's it. So if I come over here, we're back. This is the remote machine again. Just clarifying so we know where we're at. I'm going to list ls, list all files. And so you'll see the zip, all of the bits that came out when I extracted the zip, and then that SSL, the asterisk SSL zip that I also just showed. So I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to unzip that. Perfect. Ooh, we got all kinds of weird little Mac things. No problem. I'm going to clear the screen, and then we're going to do the fun part, which is sudo apt install, and then I'm going to try and remember the name of that file. Nice, I got it first try. And so that's it. That's all it's going to look like. You're going to do that. You're going to hit enter. It's going to do a whole bunch of stuff. You're going to say, that sounds great. And it's going to download a ton of stuff. The setup of FileMaker Server, you guys remember, do you accept the terms and conditions, what admin console credentials you want, your PIN, like those are the normal setup steps. Those come basically at the very end of this.
We have like 2 questions like earlier, but they're both a little off topic. So I was going to save them for the end, unless we are still, well, actually, since we're waiting for things to load. We don't run FMS on cloud because of the missing scheduled scripts, but it should be possible to start scripts remotely, right? Is this a preferred option? We can't live without scheduled scripts.
You are asking about, that is a question addressed at the cloud product. That is unrelated to what we are doing today. The cloud product, the person is correct. I believe it still does not support SASE, which is server assisted script execution. But that's actually, I think, not true also because you can talk to the admin API to program it. That is obviously not accessible to anybody really, but unless you can do API interactions. And then it also doesn't support, either way, it doesn't matter because it doesn't support plugins. And so if you need server-side plugins, you can't do that anyway. However, what we are doing today is a FileMaker Server, which is the on-premise product on the cloud, separately from, say, either like FileMaker Cloud. I think they still call it that, actually. Maybe they're going to rename it to Claris Cloud at some point, I forget. But or maybe there will be a Claris Cloud, and that'll be the studio stuff in the future, but Claris hosts it for you. But yeah, no, this is FileMaker Server. FileMaker Server supports everything server side. So yeah, you can do scheduled scripts, plugins, whatever. As always, do be aware they have to run on the platform and version that you're intending to operate. So if you have a server-side plugin that you need to use, for example, Monkey Bread or the 360works email plugin or whatever, right? There's a whole ton of them out there. You have to make sure that that plugin supports both like Linux. So in this case, it'd be Ubuntu version 22. And then also if it's an Intel or an AMD version of the plugin, make sure you've got the matching edition. So, all right. Oh, sorry. We're being asked to accept the terms and conditions. Yes, we agree. We are not building a secondary machine, so we're going to build a primary. We are going to sign in with our super secure stream credential of admin and password. We're going to do a PIN. Perfect. That's it. And then basically from this point, it'll do everything for you. I'm going to, we have an IP address here. Whoops. Okay, so let me copy that. I'm going to, actually, I'm going to do a new one. We're going to move it off screen. Shh. I'm going to hide this. So what I am doing is I'm going to go into, this is Route 53. It's Amazon DNS. I'm going in and I'm going to add a domain name basically for this server really quick, because you can do it really quick on Amazon. So see what I'm doing here? Sorry, I know I hit it from the stream, but basically I came over here. Our domain stuff that we run everything out of is called @RCC. Yep, that's what it sounds like. And then so I'm adding an FMS 2023 @rcc.com. That'll make the SSL work that we get to here in a minute. And it'll mean I can fire up my browser within seconds, connect to the admin console, put the license cert in, like whatever. That'll just be done in just a moment. So I'm going to do create records. Those are created. Perfect. And it gave me my little blue. You got it, bro. Perfect. Okay, so that's done. We're going to go back over. Nope, I don't want the bottom bar. Thanks. I want all of my screen real estate. All right, cool. So our command line did a bunch of stuff. It tells me some details. Great. I love it. That's a good one to note right here. I noted it yesterday. I should just repeat it. The one thing, or the one port we ignored today, and I'm going to continue to ignore for this demo because like 5 of my clients use it. So if you are trying to use specifically FileMaker Server as an ODBC data source, like you have a third-party data system that's going to use ODBC to talk to FileMaker, talk to a FileMaker database, read data from a FileMaker database, you'll need to open port 2399 in Amazon in the security group, which we did not do this morning, but I'm just noting it here so that in case you're like, oh, why doesn't it work? That's why. So the server's ready. Again, 2 firewalls. You have a server firewall that's like in the machine itself, and then you have the outside firewall that's the Amazon security group. If you don't have the hole poked through both of those, you're gonna have a bad time. All right, so it tells me I don't need to reboot anything. I love it. This command line error is still happening. I actually don't know what that means, but it doesn't seem to break anything. So, all right, so we have that. So FileMaker Server is installed and I guess theoretically running right now. As I mentioned, my browser is going to get mad at me and block me from going in. So we're just going to install the SSL immediately. That'll make the admin console first login look a little funny, but bear with me and I'll show it. So FMS admin, and I never remember this command, so we're going to do this together. Certificate. Yep. Nice. There it is. All right, cool. So this is the help document for the certificate subcommand in the FMS admin command line utility. So the one that I want, which is not really called out properly as an example, is this one right here. We're gonna FMS admin certificate. What are we gonna do? We're gonna import. We're not creating. I think there's a delete somewhere as well. Oh yeah, delete. There it is. So we're not going to do that, but we're going to import because we already have all the stuff, right? So we're going to do FMS admin certificate import. And then the first thing is the actual like certificate file itself. So we're going to do, I think it's @RCC, something like that. And there I just did that double tab thing. So you see, I don't have a file, like the start of a file name selected. So it just listed the contents of the directory, which in this case has our 3 certificate files. So I'm going to start my 64 and it's going to go, oh, and there's 2 files. There's one with a CRT and one with a PEM. So I'm going to pick this, I'm going to click C and hit tab and it finishes it for me. All right. So the second part of the command, so we have that. I don't need the key file pass. So these are the 2 things. I need the intermediate CA. So we're going to do intermediate CA. And same thing, _dot add. Sorry, that directory looks really funny. And so it's GD bundle in this case. And then the last one is key file. And did I bring that? Oh, maybe I didn't. What if it's just in this folder here? Oh, there it is. Yeah. It's not in the subfolder. It's out in the main thing. All right, cool. So we go *dot @RCC. There we go. Okay, cool. So that's what the command looks like. You see this whole thing down at the bottom of the screen. If there's a way I can like, bring it up a little bit. Hopefully that's legible. It's the very bottom line here. So you have a certificate import. We're importing this certificate where we're going to bring in the intermediate certificate authority. These are called the intermediates, the intermediate certificates. There's like a chain of certificates. You have a root and some number of intermediate certificates, and then the end one. The end one is the one that we install in our server. That's our cert. But for SSL validation reasons that don't matter too much for the live stream, you want all three pieces. You can, with browsers, you can get away with only having the end certificate and the key. That's like, technically that's sufficient. I'll just tell you ahead of time, if you try and actually do that with a FileMaker Pro, or if you try and actually do that, FileMaker Pro will get mad most of the time because the intermediate is not present. Why that is, I don't know, but it's just how it is. So. And we have the key file at the end. All right, cool. So I'm going to hit that. We're going to say, really import the certificate. Warning, server needs to be restarted, which is perfect because we're going to do that immediately. So we're going to say yes. It's going to ask me, this is my admin console credential that I just created seconds ago. Dun, dun, dun. It should tell me yes. Perfect. All right, and so I've touched nothing about the server. So what we're actually going to do right now is reboot it. I think you can get away with just restarting all of the services. Maybe I want to demonstrate that. That might be a good idea. So if I do, actually, yeah, let's try it. That's a good idea. I should demo that. So we do sudo, and so service, because that's what we're addressing. I'm ignoring the technical details of what service is on Linux. And then I believe it is FMS helper. Yeah. And then the command, which is what are you doing? You're asking it to restart. So I'm going to do that. An FMS helper, I know that's like a weird name for it. That is all of the collection of services that make up a FileMaker server, of which there are, I don't know, like 8 or 10 now, something like that. And so the way that Claris deals with that is they have, in other contexts, you'd call it an angel process. That is called FMS helper. And so it like is responsible for booting up the little sub processes, all the different ones, and that includes the actual FileMaker server, the data API, the admin console, whatever, stuff like that. And then also it handles some of the communications between those apps and then like logging and stuff. So, all right, so we have that. I committed that DNS thing several minutes ago, so we should be live. So let's just try it. Yeah. Let's see how live demo this goes. fms.2023.rcc.com. Boom. Beautiful. All right. So, and that's just like the homepage, whatever. We're going to go in here to the admin console. And yeah, hey, that looks, so we're going to do password. And yeah, Google tells me my password of password is breached. Thanks, Google. Love that.
Really?
So this is the only weird thing, but this is because we imported the SSL first. So it, it tries to do the onboarding, but it also knows it already has the SSL. So it does this, which could be smoother, but it's fine. You just say, okay, and then you're good. So I didn't install a license certificate yet. You'll want to do things like hourly backups. I demoed that yesterday. You can probably figure out the backup stuff. One thing actually that I kind of want to show, hold on, while we're paused, do we have questions? Let's see. Oh, Alex asked, did Java get installed with the FileMaker Server install? And the answer to that question is yes, and that only happens on Linux. Mac and Windows both require some action on your part of some kind to get a Java on there if you're going to use Web Presentation Engine, which undergirds WebDirect. And so, yeah, the direct answer is yes, it was installed automatically. Be aware, previous versions of FileMaker Server, recent ones, use Java 11. Server 2023, all platforms, uses Java 17. Those may get updated in the future. I don't know. You could has done the certificate in the UI. I don't know what that means. The license certificate or the SSL certificate? Use more words, please, and thank you. SSL. No, I cannot, because I'm not going to demonstrate overriding my browser. because you should not do that. You should find a different way to accomplish the task. You want a secure server. If I show people how to override that, they're going to do so and then have FileMaker servers misconfigured because they don't have SSLs. And then I'm going to get tech support requests from people asking why their third-party service that talks to a data API endpoint on their FileMaker server doesn't work for some reason. And the answer is because they have an invalid SSL. And so you should just do that correctly. Does that make sense? I don't want to demonstrate. Well, I can demonstrate mildly bad practices, but I'm going to call them out. There's certain times where I don't want to do that, actually. Actually, if you're going to do the license certificate, that goes here. So you can see we're on a trial. That's a full unrestricted. They don't actually like that because it's just 45-day trial and you get whatever you want. But if you were going to, you'd import license certificate, and the only two things that you need is that fresh copy of the license certificate file from your license page, and then this organization. You can see the two I put in here. Yeah, there's one of my clients. I'm sure that's not revealing anything, but you put your org name in here, and that is whatever you put on the paperwork that you submitted to us, to Claris, whoever you bought your licensing from. That's the main of it. So I want to do, there's two things I want to demo here. One is I want to put a quick hourly backup in because I have to demonstrate that. Oh yeah, there's actually a couple things here. So new features, this is not new in 2023. This is new in 19.5, I think. You can do parallel backups if you have tons of databases. This uses server-side intelligence to basically try and figure out what files are related to each other. It comes from Pro and WebDirect and Go, I think. And we'll try to group up the files so that, like, for example, there's a couple good situations where that comes up. One is you're doing some kind of shared hosting or like big hosting, right? This version ups the file limit to 256 files hosted on a server. And so you could imagine it would be a lot easier. Oh, I could put like 5 different people's or 5 different customers, multi-file solutions on that server now. Perfect. So what parallel backup enables is FileMaker Server will attempt to identify, like, not that those are 5 different clients, but that there's like 5 different sets of files that relate to each other, if they do. And it will try to back them all up at the same time. And I don't mean all 5, but like each chunk. So like customer 1 has 12 files or something, and it'll realize probably, most of those are in the same grouping, if you will. And it'll pause all of that 12 simultaneously, back them up, and go to the next one, and go to the next one, and same thing over and over again. So super useful. That's one thing. Let's see. Backup settings. Somebody turn that on while I was looking at it, because I think I have friends on stream here. But yes, this is a feature I asked for, basically. And so what it is you can now cancel backups while they're running. Useful. 19.6 would keep those canceled backups, which is awesome, except unless you have like a zip-based backup process, which we run on all of our Windows servers, and then you're backing up like broke, half backed up copies of the database, and those accrue over time. That was not a fun operations problem to have, but the solution was fairly straightforward, which is for them to provide us a toggle so you can decide if you want to keep those canceled backups or not. Progressives, we now recommend, actually, because they log when they run, and so you can determine if one of those, they run every 5 minutes or so, and you can now, based on logs, determine if or when one of those backups ran, and importantly, if it completed, which means you can use it. So there's that. We're going to add an hourly really quick. We don't do anything interesting on the Linux servers here. For the most part, I do a single volume for our Linux servers. The thing I'm going to demonstrate immediately after this is why, and I'll show you. But the short version is we can do snapshot-based backups on Linux, and they're application consistent. And I don't have to do anything more to like make that happen. And so you can actually like utilize that for disaster recovery purposes, basically. So we're going to do daily. We're going to do between. We're going to go 24/7, 365, absolutely. Top of the hour. And yeah, not every 10 minutes, maybe every hour. That sounds great. Perfect. All right, cool. There's a couple options here that I didn't customize, but that you can. One of these is new, which is this one right here, the clone only option. So verify does like a full consistency check on the database. I'll just say, don't put this on the hourly. Probably don't put it on the daily unless it's very important to the business. If you have a large data set, it can take a long time, period. Be careful. Things will be gummed up while it's running. So generally you run it, we'll say super early in the morning, whatever that means for you at, off hours, basically. Clone is awesome. That's an opt-in thing. And so if you do like a clone backup, that means there will be a clone in addition to the backup, not instead of. And that's, yeah, it's a structure only, no records of all of the databases that this backup applies to. So in this case, we're doing all databases. So the answer is yes, all databases. But you can put databases in subfolders. You can pick individual databases to back up on some schedule. And so you could like have a clone for like a particular critical file or something like that. And then finally, there's this one's new, and it's the clone only option, which is the opposite of what I just said, is clone only. It does not actually back up the database. It spits out a clone on that schedule. These are quite useful for like post analysis. There's a couple different, I don't know what people are actually using it for. I'm very interested. If someone would tell me, that would be fantastic. I have a couple of ideas where this would be useful. One of them is actually for change tracking on the database. Because you could like spit clones out every day or every week or something like that and track structural changes in the file that way. There's also, I think you can also do something similar to that with the new XML serialization, which I believe is server-side supported. I know the format's not even completely done yet. Claris keeps telling us it's not done yet. It's not done yet. But like you can schedule spitting out the XML serialization of the structure. And that also can be used for the same thing, which is to say, if you used text, text manipulation tools, say Git or some other thing, you could take those serializations of your database, check them in and do differential analysis on them to see what has changed. Which may be nothing, or maybe, Bob from accounting went in and with his extra additional powers added features you don't want in your database. So you can track down stuff like that. One of the other things that we do on all systems, always, forever, period, I'm not kidding, is we disable the automatically open databases. We still do that. That is still our current recommendation. I don't know if that will change. Theoretically, this specifically enabling that feature reduces the risk of the automatic open situation. That's the intent of the feature. I mentioned it yesterday. I'll mention it again. I am still working on getting some additional technical detail out of Claris as to quite exactly like how it works. Mostly because I want to know how it behaves and like when it's expected to not behave or to behave badly or to cause, negative side effects or something like that. Obviously, everyone wants their code to run perfectly every time, but it's very literally a feature that keeps recent transactions, essentially, kind of like other database systems, a recent set of like committed data to the database and so you can say in memory, right? In memory, in RAM on the server, or optionally, you can sync it to disk. This slows the server down mildly, this more so because it's having to manually write that data out to disk every time. And so actually it's going to two places at once instead of just one. It's the latency for writing it to RAM is probably not that big actually, but it may be noticeable by somebody, so you have to say it. But this one actually will, because you're definitely writing to disk twice whenever you're doing stuff. So that will slow it down, period. However, max safety, because you have like two copies. You have your database, that's the actual file on disk, and then you have this thing. And so if like FileMaker Server falls over or something, theoretically what happens is this whole thing reboots. I don't think it's the whole machine. I think it's just FMS itself, like FM server D comes, reboots or comes back up or something. And, assuming this whole thing goes, it looks at these caches and puts the file back together for you. That will sound very similar to the old startup restoration we told everybody to turn off under all circumstances. And so we're kind of that's why I need more technical detail on how this thing works, because it's different. but it's targeted at the same set of problems, which is for people that don't listen to RCC, that haven't seen this stream, and don't turn their database this thing off. The point is that the server comes up dead. Like that's 100% on purpose. I understand that's an operational issue. The reason for it is because you're going to come in and restore from backups every time, 100% of the time, no questions. And so this theoretically allows you not to do that under some circumstances, not all actually. And so like that's exciting actually if it can successfully put the file back together again. But I need some technical detail to make sure that that's what it does, and that like one of the problems with startup restoration, which is the previous edition of this sort of feature, the problem that it had is if it like tried to put the database back together and it failed, like it just wasn't successful at its job, it would destroy the database. And so you couldn't even go and like you know how you can do like manual local recovery, exporting records and stuff like that to try and duct tape your records back together for something that was super important that you don't want to lose. You can't, with that old one, you couldn't do that. It would destroy the file. If it wasn't successful, it was destroyed. And so I'm not going to tell anybody to turn this feature on yet until I know that that's not the outcome. So all of that qualification ahead. Those are the main points. This stuff's all normal. None of this stuff has really changed too much. This is where you turn on progressives if you're going to. You can do script and verify schedules. You can configure that here. This will be the same place if you have a scheduled script that runs server side. You would either, you can load schedules from the old server. If you do save all schedules on the old server, you can load all schedules on the new one. That's useful. And then you can manually program them if you have a new one here. Notifications, we do recommend everybody turns on email notifications because your FileMaker server will complain at you randomly, and you should hear that. And then SSL, we did this already. But just to mention it, if you do override your browser and install it, you know, with the angry red box over here, signed, private key, and then you also want the intermediate certificate file. You want to make sure all three are there. So that's the main. Turn on WebDirect. Sorry, turn on Web Publishing Engine, then you can turn on WebDirect. That usually takes a few seconds the very first time that you boot it. I think it does some compilation or some optimization or something like that on first launch, essentially. Then you can turn on WebDirect. Now everybody has WebDirect. So if you came here, you could like log into the little, I think I can do that? Yeah, so you can, oh, and then, all right, so this is the other thing. I had to note that yesterday. So where is that? That is here. That is clients. Sorry, this is the thing I missed on the screen. I was like, I'm supposed to be looking at this. So this is on by default now. And so that's why the first thing that it did when I went to WebDirect, even though I'm like going right in, and there's only one file and it's the demo one that is public access, right? Like, so if I sign in as a guest, then I can just do it. Good to go. Nice. So, but you may decide if you want this feature to be on. What it essentially means is if you are opening up the server, that's the WebDirect list of databases, that's the, oh Lord, there's all kinds of stuff actually. It locks down the data API, list databases endpoint. If you are firing up the hosts menu in Pro, right, you're going to look at the databases because you're going to like, I want to click into that one. The first thing that it does before it'll show you any lists is it asks you for credentials. You log in, then it only shows you databases that you have access to with that username and password. That can be confusing, so just flagging that it's a change. Previous versions did, maybe 19.6 did, I think, but FileMaker Server previous to that did not come with that feature enabled. I tried to enable it at RCC when it first rolled out, and everybody got mad, so I turned it back off. You know, I think that it can do the OAuth thing now. As of Server 2023, I think that was a fixed bug. So that was one of the problems. Is if you turn on filter databases previous to this version, I believe, it would not show you, like if you had Microsoft Azure login or Google or whatever, one of the supported OAuth providers, it wouldn't show you the button, and so you like couldn't OAuth into your databases. You had to use like a username and password, and it's like anyway, I think that's fixed now. So it would be more approachable to enable that at this point. But Okay, so we did WebDirect. We went through that. Data API, we turn this on most of our servers. Plugins, if you need to load one, that'll be here. If you're using the install plugin script step, you got to turn stuff like this on. And then you see there's a separate enablement there is for this one too, for the install plugin script step, which is to say, can a full access user perform script on server, a script that does install plugin script step, right? So you could put Monkey Bread's plugin on, or again, 360 email, or somebody. I don't know if 360 email actually supports Linux server yet, so maybe not that one, but yeah, Monkey Bread certainly does. He's got plugins for all the platforms. So there's that. If you need ODBC, again, offsite, you do that here. OData, for those of you working in that flavor of DAPI, it's not really, but it kind of is. That's where you turn it on. A couple other cool features in here. So, right, I mentioned the licensing thing earlier. So if you do import, that'll be here. Administrator, you can change the username and password for this. Obviously, we're just using a silly one for the demo, but you can do that. The second thing that's neat and is very new is if you use SSH keys for authentication, for example, you can do the same thing with the admin API, which would, like I mentioned before, much more secure to log in with a file-based authentication rather than using just a username and password. To put it very simply, if you think about you're going to have your password, maybe you're awesome and it's 20 or 30 or even 60 characters or some crazy thing, right? Okay, a key is like thousands, plural. So, yeah, no one's guessing it, very simply. It's actually more secure and cooler than that, but just as an easy analogy, think about a password that's 30 characters long versus a password that's thousands, plural, and you can see kind of the difference at a basic level. This is useful. So I'm like remote from the server, right? Looking at the restrict access. I could go in here and lock myself out if I wanted to. Or lock it down to, say, this office's IP or something like that if you need to. They have brought back this, which is the administrator roles that was killed in after 16. It just, magically wasn't in the admin console after that. This, I believe, is fully brought back, which is the old admin roles. What that really means is you can have a full administrator who can do literally everything on the admin console, and then sub administrators or managers, if you want to call them that, that have more limited access. And so you can grant them permission to do certain things that are management tasks on the server, but without giving them full control over all of it. So that's awesome and useful. And then this external authentication is how you do either like all the ADFS, Amazon OAuth 2, custom IDPs, which would be Okta or Ping, or what was the other one? Somebody said yesterday that's supported. But they've there's a list somewhere they've tested with most of the big ones. This is super new and specific to Linux. And it's new on Linux. And what this lets you do is on-site Microsoft Active Directory can now be used for login even with a Linux FileMaker server. People not in FileMaker may know that Ubuntu has more or less supported that for quite a number of years now. And so we're now being given basically access to that. I'm going to play with this to get it set up. We don't actually use Microsoft Active Directory on site. So if somebody asks me to do this, it'll be fun. I'll read the documentation with them. But, but that said, Linux should be able to, at this point, slot into your existing Microsoft environment. And so if you want to save money on your FileMaker server and there's nothing Windows specific that you need or something like that, good to go. So that's it. There's the final thing I wanted to demonstrate that's actually not FileMaker server related at all, to be honest. Oh yeah, there's the logs tab. This thing's cool. I kind of covered that yesterday though. This is the big new feature, which is if you have a server-side script and there's errors in it, obviously, of some kind, they get their own log, or they have the option of getting their own log file now. And so if you're doing running your scheduled script or your PSOS and you're trying to figure out what's going wrong with your script, it's easier to debug because it's not the log entries for that are not in with the other server events that are maybe not so relevant to what you're doing. So that's super useful. All right, final demo thing. I just want to show it. So the thing we didn't address actually yesterday or today, and I'm going to do now specifically for Linux because you can do it easily here, is backups. So first things first, like on Windows, we have a zip-based backup system. We do hourly, daily, weekly. We have ransomware coverage, all this stuff. We don't actually do nearly that much on Linux. However, one upside and one change and benefit in both ways from Windows is we can do application consistent snapshots because Linux keeps its hard drive in sync in a different way than Windows does. And so what we can do is go into Amazon, this is outside of the server completely, and tell Amazon, hey, that's my FileMaker server. Basically, Amazon doesn't need to know that, but that's my FileMaker server. We know that. And I would like to ask Amazon, say, every hour or every 20 minutes or whatever, right, on some schedule, to take a snapshot of the server. And so those are differential. So with the example of the hourly backup, which is what RCC usually does, the difference or the amount of data saved is not, you may remember we set up a 250 gigabyte hard drive. So it's not going to be 250 gigabytes. It's going to be how much changed between an hour ago and now. And so if that like includes your backups or something, that's the bulk of the data set. Maybe some log files or something like that. And that's it. And so on S3, the most expensive way to store everything is like 2.3 cents per gigabyte. And so you're going to have that 250 gigabyte initial and then the changes over time. And those changes are tiny and they're fractions of a gig. And so it's incredibly cheap backups. There's one main thing that you need to know about that, and I just have to say it every single time, and that is when you are restoring from a snapshot, and this advice is generic actually, it's Windows, Linux, doesn't matter, if you're snapshotting, period, and you have not sat down and written probably hundreds or thousands of lines of code to make sure that FileMaker Server is pausing the databases at the precise same time that you're running the snapshot. If you're not doing that, you would know if you are. You are taking that, you're going to put the machine back up from the snapshot. It is a picture of the hard drive. They are bootable. It's like a second copy of the server, if you will, or 1,000 extra copies of the server if you keep a ton of them. Those, you can't use the live short version. You can't use the live data. You have to take from one of the backups. So, because again, if you've not written a bunch of code to make sure that that's correct, it's not, and you should assume it's not. And so you're going to boot that machine up and go, cool, great, and throw the live data or the database that's in the live folder away when you do that. I just want to note that for everybody. So we're going to go over here. I don't need to do this. We want to do, how do I do an EBS snapshot? Snapshots, yes. Nice. So can I create a schedule? How do I do that? Let's see, those are useful. So you can create a volume from a snapshot. You can create an image from a snapshot. What is this? Oh, that's the original setup one. Oh, I can delete that soon. All right, cool. So let's see. Hold on, I'm gonna look at our other. Where do we, AWS? I have a schedule configured. I just don't know where it is. Sorry, hold on. No, not that. EC2 feature, yes. Okay, but how do I go to NorCal, which is where I have a ton of these. Is it lifecycle? Oh, it is. It's a lifecycle management policy. Okay, cool. All right, this will be easy. Nice. Cool. All right, so in this section over here on the left side, it's the elastic block store. That's what they call hard drives. Basically, it's a volume, but the volumes are the individual drives. You can see the Web Portal Wizard one, which is on the list. Here's one of these is the 250 from yesterday that we did. If I find the date entry. So that's the one from yesterday. That's the Windows boot drive. This will be the Linux one. That one's from today. Perfect. So I'm going to put that to duplicate this tab. And then we're going to be staring at the same thing again. And so I'm going to come down here. I want to keep that this I code, or the instance code, sorry, wherever that went. Basically the instance ID. So we're going to go in here. We're going to go to the lifecycle manager. We have nothing because I have nothing in the Oregon region right now, and they are correct. So I'm going to do an EBS snapshot policy. So I'm going to do next. I can do an individual volume, or I can do an instance. We're going to do a volume name. Do I have to name the volume? Or can I do the volume ID? That's what I actually want. I want volume ID equals. Sorry, hold on. I'm waiting for there it goes. I have the little zoom thing on the top of my screen. Triggers. Oh, instance ID. Sorry. Oh, I did an instance based. Okay. It doesn't matter either way, but maybe that'll be easier. And then instance ID. Yeah, use instance ID. And then I don't want actually the volume in that case. So I'm going to go to the attached instance. Thank you. We want to copy that thing. Yep. I don't care what that code is. I just need it to comply. Perfect. So there's our instance. So we're going to have that. It only has one hard drive, but if you wanted to do the instance type of backup policy, or snapshot policy in this case, is useful because if you have multiple hard drives, for example, this will capture all of them. So we're going to say FileMaker Server 2023, 30 days of backups. Yep, perfect. We're going to change the default role. It'll make it and do all the stuff for us. Awesome, I love it. We could tag stuff, so you could like tag the machine type or tag it FileMaker. There's all kinds of cool stuff that you can do with that, where you like have this thing spit out all the backups every hour or whatever, and then you can set tags up on them, and then you can do things to clean up the backups later based on the tag values, and there's all kinds of cool stuff you can do with that. I'm not going to demo that today, but just, so you know. Nope, I don't need any of that. So we're going to do schedule 1. We're going to say backups. Maybe not an exclamation point. Cool. We're going to do daily. We're going to do every 1 hour, starting at, 9 a.m. That sounds great. So we want to keep how many snapshots? So we have 24 snapshots in a day times, can't do math, so let's do 24 times 30. So that would be a month. Perfect. So 720. So let's keep 720. That would be a month worth of snapshots. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. That sounds great. It's going to come in with an instance ID tag, which is wonderful, because it means that if we needed to like address all snapshots for a machine, we can do that. And then this timestamp will additionally be a tag, so we can tell when it happened. We're not going to configure most of these, although to instantly deliver all provision performance. I think those are more expensive if I remember correctly. This one's useful, 100%. I'm not going to set it up, but I want you to be aware that this exists. So if you are taking pictures of your server hard drive, right, that's what these are, you can enable a cross-region copy. And what that means is I am in, my server is in Oregon, the snapshots that go with that server are in Oregon. If the meteorite hits Oregon, we have a problem. If you want to copy it to Virginia, or pick a different continent, maybe copy to Europe, I don't know. You can just check this box and get that set up. I think there's some additional setup that you have to do associated with that. And yes, you do have to pay for both copies basically. But that solves, for some definition of solves locale-based problems. For example, I don't know why, but if all of the Oregon region of Amazon went down or something like that, you'd be able to go to your European one that you sent your snapshots to and rehydrate a server based on the copy of the hard drive that you had. You do a little backup restoration, and then I don't know, I guess probably deal with the latency because you'd be in Europe instead of the West Coast, and so you'd have that to contend with. But your business would be up and running. And to actually operate something like that, assuming, I don't know, whatever, the Amazon doesn't, completely fall over or something as a result, that, you're talking an hour or two to get your business back up and running again. Not bad. So, all right, so I'm going to do review policy. We're going to double check everything looks good. So we're going to target that instance. we're going to do 30 days of backups. We have all this stuff. Not going to exclude anything, not add any cool tags. We're going to snapshot every hour of the day. We're going to keep 720 of them, which is 1 month. We got our tags. Sounds great. So you do create policy. Done. And so what this does now, again, as I said, every hour on the hour, this will take a picture of the hard drive for you and put them in Amazon. And so if I let this run for a while, it would just keep filling them out until it got 720 of them. And then at the end, the last one drops off and the new one appears. And it's a rolling window. It's one of those things. And so that gives you many points over the last month to restore to. This is not quite, but almost what Claris Cloud does, or FileMaker Cloud, if you know it under that name. I think theirs are every 20 minutes, but essentially this is what that is. It's the same thing that they're making available to you. They've written a bunch of code on the back end to give you a cloud admin console interface to deal with those snapshots. But yeah, it's fundamentally the same thing. So all right, so this is the last demo that I wanted to do. We're kind of at the end. Margaret, did we have any questions that rolled in or anything I need to address?
I was also distracted on YouTube, so I might have missed it. There's a recent question from Sheagle about creating a new server every time is the cleanest way of updating. Did you grab that one, or do I need to ask that one out loud?
Let's see. What are your thoughts on upgrading the server? Let's see. Okay, so if you're talking about physical hardware, I was just going to put it this way. I'll be a little more blunt than maybe is necessary for advice reasons. If you are talking about physical hardware, that is the only time I would ever even evaluate doing an upgrade instead of a clean install. In the cloud, you can just throw everything away, and I would advise you to do so. There's no downside to it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you were talking about physical hardware of some kind, a Mac or Windows PC, whatever, or Linux, actually, an on-site Linux server, then it may be more approachable. What I'll tell you is it probably won't matter. I have done in-place upgrades of, technically it was the pre-release version of this, actually, specifically Server 2023, and it worked fine. But I just have to bracket that to say there have been challenges with the upgrade process previously. And so if it goes fully nuclear awry, it's the same approach as you've always had, which is you're going to do a clean install anyway, addressing the FileMaker Server portion of it. Second part of the question is about upgrading the operating system itself. You will want to, and this is a note. So if you're doing this where you have to do an old version of FileMaker Server, it's installed and you have a previous version of Ubuntu. So let's say you're on 1804 and you have one of the FileMaker servers that runs on that, which would be 19 something. And you're going to go to 2004 because you want to use FileMaker Server 2023. You're going to take the old version of the server off, follow the uninstall process, basically, upgrade Ubuntu, and then come back and install FileMaker Server again, whatever the new version is. I would not, because of the operating system version change, I would advise specifically against doing an in-place upgrade for FileMaker Server for the software. So there's the general rule with a bunch of this stuff is, I said this to somebody at one point, you can violate one law at a time, choose carefully. And so if you are upgrading Ubuntu and trying to do an in-place FileMaker Server update, as two actions, but not take it off, upgrade, put it back on again, but upgrade the operating system version and then come back and upgrade FileMaker Server again, because that's not unreasonable. It makes sense that you might do that. What I'm just telling you is that's violating two laws at the same time. Pick one. Don't violate two laws at a time. Pick your violation. So you're upgrading in place when you should. I'll just say in general and generally speaking, not specific to anybody's circumstance, but you should do clean installs because that will be better every time. But for obvious practical reasons, it's not always possible. And so again, you want to violate the least amount of laws as possible. So if you can be cleaner about some part of it, for example, cleanly removing FileMaker Server, do your upgrade, that will probably work at that point. The operating system upgrade will go fine in that sense. And then you come back again and you install FileMaker Server, say 2023 in this case. Cool. I'll also tell you, if you are doing that specific set of operations with also specifically FileMaker Server 2023, you don't need to nuke the server like configuration directory like you used to. We used to tell people like rename that directory or whatever. So I don't know if it's good. I haven't tested it. I'm going to give you that fair warning and qualifier. But theoretically and per Claris, it will pick up the old server settings from an uninstalled FileMaker Server, whichever ones are left behind, basically, and those will get picked up by the new version. So you can theoretically do that, actually, and it will probably just work. You may not even lose SSLs and scheduled scripts and stuff. May not. Obviously, you should always back all that stuff up just in case, but theoretically, that is supposed to just work. So I don't know if it does, but I have to give you all the qualifiers. There's a bunch of stuff previously that was supposed to just work, and then 2 versions later it definitely does. And so again, if it merely doesn't work now because there's some funky bug going on, great. Please send that to Claris and they will get it fixed. And then at some point in the future, all of those statements will be true, which is you can just do an in-place upgrade and it is expected to just work. So I think that is all of the questions. It's all the ones I'm seeing on Discord over here.
There's some questions on YouTube that I want to grab real fast.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, bring those over. We'll address them and then land it.
Snapshots on in a bit? Okay.
No, do it now and then.
Yeah. From Alex, why not do snapshots on Windows?
I will restate it because I did address that previously. You cannot on Windows do application consistent snapshots with FileMaker Server out of the box. If you are a Windows expert, you know exactly what volume shadow service and volume shadow copy are. And the piece of information you may be missing if you are asking that question is FileMaker Server has no idea what those are. And so when the VSS bat signal goes out that a snapshot is about to take place, every other piece of software for this meant or built or intended for Windows, it knows exactly what that is, and it, hikes up and pauses the database or makes it consistent on disk or whatever. There's different things that the software might do depending on what the software is, but they prepare for the snapshot, generally speaking. FileMaker Server does not know what that is, doesn't prepare for it, has never heard of it, never met her. And so if you are relying on that signal to cause FileMaker Server to do what every other piece of software on Windows does in that case, you are relying on something that's false because it doesn't happen and it's not supported. And so the reason I said you need to write hundreds or thousands of lines of code is because you have to write command line utilities that from within Windows pause FileMaker Server, trigger the outside snapshot process, if that's Amazon in this case, or if you do your own snapshotting because you've got a VMware thing on site or, something like that. Doesn't matter what it is. It's completely irrelevant what the technology is that you're using. You have to trigger that process from within the FileMaker Server's VM because you have to pause the databases, then trigger the snapshot, then confirm the snapshot has completed and unpause the databases. If you can write code that is good enough to do that reliably on a consistent basis, you should probably sell that as a product. And because all of our competitors that have written that code and have it working all have giant hosting companies as a result of that. And that's basically why. And some of them are moving to Linux now because it's cheaper and they can pass those savings on to their clients. But all of the earlier hosting companies that are competitor consultancies. I don't mean the ones that are solely hosting companies like FMP Host and people like that. But there's like 4 or 5 of our competitors who have big hosting or they have hosting operations. I don't know how big they are. But a lot of those, they wrote they had a software engineer sit there and write that code, and it's very persnickety. FileMaker is not very good for that type of automation, and so there are a lot of weird corner cases, edge cases. The command line utilities are not very amenable to automation, and the command line arguments and stuff are a pain in the butt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's all kinds of problems with actually doing that, which is why you have to write hundreds or thousands of lines of code to get that done. If you have not written those lines of code, you should not trust the snapshots. It's that simple. So, did you have another question, Margaret?
Yes, you've heard this one 100 times, but I'm going to ask it again because people pop
Perfect.
Someone was asking, basically, people are asking, should I upgrade to 2023? And then follow up, if I don't upgrade to 2023, what is the highest level of the FileMaker server that you recommend?
That's an easy one I addressed at the beginning, and I will address it again. Sure, if you upgrade to 2023, you should tell Claris about the bugs you find, and maybe me too. We will probably recommend people update, which is to say endorse the version. There's a forthcoming patch that's going to fix some issues. Once that's out, it's probably good to go. That's the short answer to the question. Second question, or second part to the question is like, all right, if not that, then what version? All the in-market ones are fine. If you want some compatibility with 2023, you need to be on 19.4 or newer. So that'll limit the breadth of the version range, basically, that you might pick. But also realistically, I actually don't know if 19.3 dropped support, but at least previous to this launch, 19.3 was the oldest supported version. So maybe that's new to you if you're listening. If you are on a version older than 19.3, you are on unsupported software. Please update. Thank you. And that is an actual recommendation because 19.4 is fantastic, and if you don't suffer one of the like WebDirect bugs that's in 19.4, which is a very short and specific list, it's awesome. 19.5 was fine. Later versions, early version, not so much. 19.6 also fine. Somewhat challenging if you are heavy on WebDirect because it doesn't free up its RAM as efficiently as it maybe could. 20 has specific fixes for that problem. So, or 2023, it's version 20 under the hood. So. But yeah, so
being said, I think we're good. I think you were
okay.
free.
Cool. Land the plane.
Woo! Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Thank you very much, Jacob, for doing this. We'll be back tomorrow. If you happen to still have a Mac that you're having as a server, we will discuss how to install FileMaker 2023 onto that server. We will see you all tomorrow. Goodbye!
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!